Bully grabs teacher's throat in lab, her military past destroys his future. An inspiring story by Heartfelt Tales. The laboratory door slammed shut with a bone-chilling finality. Sarah Martinez felt the cold metal of the chemistry table pressing against her back as three towering figures closed in around her. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across their sneering faces. At 52, with 20 years of military service behind her and now 5 years teaching high school chemistry, Sarah had faced down insurgents in Afghanistan and survived IED explosions in Iraq. But nothing had prepared her for this moment when 17-year-old Derek Thompson's massive hand wrapped around her throat. "You think you can fail me and ruin my football scholarship?" Derek's voice was a low growl, his breath hot against her face. His two accomplices, Jake and Marcus, blocked the exits, their eyes gleaming with the same malicious intent that had been building for months. If you're enjoying this intense opening, please hit that like button and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more inspiring stories of courage and resilience. Now, let's dive into Sarah's incredible journey. The pressure on Sarah's windpipe increased, but something deep within her military-trained mind remained perfectly calm. She had been in worse situations. Much worse. As Derek's grip tightened, her thoughts flashed back to Staff Sergeant Martinez, the woman she used to be, the woman who had earned 3 Purple Hearts and commanded respect from hardened soldiers twice her size. But this wasn't about physical confrontation. This was about something far more complex and dangerous. The trouble had started 3 months earlier when Sarah Martinez first walked into Roosevelt High School as their new chemistry teacher. The previous teacher had quit mid-semester after what the administration diplomatically called classroom management issues. Sarah soon discovered the reality was far worse. Derek Thompson, the school's star quarterback and son of the mayor, had been terrorizing teachers and students alike for years. Derek was built like a linebacker at 6'3" and 220 pounds, with the kind of entitled swagger that came from never facing consequences for his actions. His father's political influence and his athletic prowess had created a perfect storm of immunity that had corrupted not just Derek, but his inner circle of followers. Sarah's military background had taught her to assess threats quickly, and Derek Thompson registered as a clear and present danger from day one. He would swagger into her classroom 15 minutes late, deliberately knock over other students' experiments, and make crude comments that sent ripples of fear through the room. When she tried to discipline him, he would smirk and remind her who his father was. The first major incident came during a lab on chemical reactions. Derek had accidentally spilled hydrochloric acid on Jenny Chen's notebook, destroying weeks of work. When Sarah confronted him, Derek stood up to his full height and got uncomfortably close to her face. "What are you going to do about it, Army girl?" he had sneered, using the derogatory nickname he'd given her. "Write me up? My dad plays golf with the superintendent every weekend." Sarah had documented everything meticulously, just as she had learned to do in the military. Every incident, every threat, every act of intimidation was recorded with military precision. But each report she filed seemed to disappear into the administrative ether, deflected by Derek's father's influence and the school's desperate need to keep their star athlete eligible for the playoffs. The breaking point came on a cold November afternoon. Sarah had stayed after school to prepare for the next day's advanced chemistry class when Derek and his 2 closest friends, Jake Morrison and Marcus Bell, cornered her in the lab. They had clearly planned this confrontation, waiting until the building was nearly empty and the security cameras in that particular lab were conveniently malfunctioning. "You've been causing me problems, Martinez," Derek had said, his voice carrying the same tone Sarah had heard from enemy combatants who thought they held all the cards. "My grades are slipping, and scouts are starting to ask questions. I need you to change my grades, or things are going to get very unpleasant for you." Sarah had faced down terrorist leaders who made Derek Thompson look like a playground bully, but she also understood the unique challenge this situation presented. In the military, the chain of command was clear and respected. Here, corruption and privilege had created a system where a 17-year-old boy thought he could intimidate a decorated combat veteran with impunity. I don't respond well to threats, Sarah had replied calmly, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded troops under fire. Your grades reflect your effort and understanding of the material. If you want better grades, you need to do better work. That's when Derek's mask of civilized intimidation dropped completely. He moved faster than Sarah had expected, grabbing her throat and slamming her against the lab table with enough force to knock over several beakers. But Derek Thompson had made a critical error in judgment. He had physically attacked a woman who had survived 20 years of military service, including 3 combat deployments and countless life-or-death situations. The moment his hand touched her throat, Sarah's military training kicked in with devastating precision. Instead of panicking or fighting back physically, Sarah did something Derek never expected. She remained completely calm, her voice steady despite the pressure on her windpipe. "Derek," she said quietly, "you just crossed a line that you can never uncross. Take your hands off me right now, and we can still resolve this like civilized people." Derek's grip tightened, encouraged by what he perceived as weakness. "You're not in the army anymore, Martinez. Nobody's coming to save you." Sarah smiled then, and something in that smile made Jake and Marcus shift uncomfortably. It was the smile of someone who had stared down death and emerged victorious. "You're absolutely right," Sarah said softly. "Nobody's coming to save me. But the thing about us Army girls, Derek, is that we learned a long time ago how to save ourselves." With movements too quick for Derek to counter, Sarah activated the phone in her pocket, which she had managed to set to record the moment she realized where this confrontation was heading. Every word, every threat, every moment of physical assault was being captured in crystal-clear audio. But Sarah's real masterstroke wasn't the recording. It was what she did next. Instead of fighting back or trying to escape, Sarah began to speak in the calm, authoritative voice she had used to brief generals and coordinate military operations under fire. "Derek Thompson, son of Mayor Robert Thompson, you are currently committing multiple felonies. Assault and battery on a school employee, criminal intimidation, and attempted extortion. Your accomplices, Jake Morrison and Marcus Bell, are now accessories to these crimes. You have approximately 30 seconds to release me and walk away before this becomes a matter for law enforcement rather than school administration." Derek's confidence wavered for the first time. This wasn't the frightened reaction he was used to getting from teachers. "You're bluffing," he snarled, but his grip loosened slightly. Sarah continued in that same calm, measured tone. "At 17, you can be tried as an adult for these charges. Your football career will be over. Your college prospects will be destroyed. Your father's political career will be permanently damaged. Is maintaining your inflated ego worth destroying not just your future, but your family's reputation?" The psychological warfare that Sarah had learned in military intelligence training was far more effective than any physical confrontation could have been. She was systematically dismantling Derek's sense of power and control, replacing his confidence with growing fear of real consequences. "And Derek," Sarah continued, "unlike the teachers you've intimidated before, I have extensive documentation of every incident, every threat, and every act of academic misconduct you've committed this semester. I also have contacts in law enforcement, military investigators, and federal agencies who take crimes against veterans very seriously." Derek's hand fell away from her throat as the reality of his situation began to penetrate his arrogance. But Sarah wasn't finished. She had learned in the military that when you gain the psychological advantage over an enemy, you press that advantage completely. "Here's what's going to happen," Sarah said, straightening her shirt with military precision. "You 3 are going to walk out of this room and report directly to Principal Harrison's office. You're going to confess everything you just did and everything you've been doing to intimidate teachers and students at this school. You're going to accept whatever consequences come from your actions like men instead of cowards. And if we don't?" Marcus found his voice for the first time. Sarah's smile became genuinely warm, which somehow made it even more terrifying. "Then I release the recording I just made to the police, the school board, the local media, and the college scouts who have been recruiting Derek. I also contact my former colleagues in military intelligence who specialize in investigating domestic threats and corruption. Your choice, gentlemen." The three boys exchanged uncertain glances, the dynamic in the room having shifted completely. The predators had become prey, and they all knew it. Derek tried one last desperate bluff. "My father will destroy you for this." Sarah laughed then, a sound that carried 20 years of facing down much more dangerous enemies than a small-town politician. "Derek, your father is a mayor in a town of 30,000 people. I've briefed senators, negotiated with foreign ministers, and testified before congressional committees. I've survived assassination attempts and coordinated operations that saved thousands of lives. Do you really think I'm intimidated by a small-town politician who raised a son who thinks assault is an acceptable way to solve problems?" The fight went out of Derek completely. For the first time in his life, he was facing someone who couldn't be bullied, bought, or intimidated. Someone whose power came not from privilege or position, but from genuine strength, experience, and moral authority. "What do you want from us?" Jake asked quietly. Sarah's expression softened slightly, revealing the teacher beneath the warrior. "I want you to become the men you're capable of being instead of the bullies you've chosen to be. Derek, you have genuine intelligence and natural leadership abilities, but you've been using them to hurt people instead of help them. That changes now." Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened at Roosevelt High School. Derek Thompson, faced with real consequences for the first time in his life, began to change. The recording Sarah had made was never released because it never needed to be. Derek and his friends confessed everything to the principal and accepted their punishments, which included suspension from the football team and mandatory anger management counseling. But the real transformation came in Sarah's classroom. Derek began attending every class on time, completing his assignments with genuine effort, and even helping other students who were struggling with the material. The boy who had once terrorized teachers was slowly becoming the leader he had the potential to be all along. Sarah worked with Derek one-on-one after school, not just on chemistry, but on leadership principles she had learned in the military. She taught him that real strength comes from protecting others, not intimidating them. That true leadership means taking responsibility for your actions and using your influence to make others better. Jake and Marcus followed Derek's lead, and the toxic culture of intimidation that had poisoned the school began to dissolve. Other teachers found their classrooms becoming safer and more conducive to learning as the ripple effects of Sarah's intervention spread throughout the school. Principal Harrison, who had initially been skeptical of the new teacher with the military background, watched in amazement as discipline problems decreased and academic performance improved across the board. Sarah had done something that no teacher before her had been able to accomplish. She had changed the culture of the school itself. The most remarkable transformation was in Derek himself. By the end of the semester, his grades had improved dramatically through his own genuine effort. He began mentoring younger students and organizing volunteer activities for the football team. College scouts who came to evaluate his athletic ability were even more impressed by his character and leadership qualities. At graduation, Derek Thompson was named valedictorian, his speech focusing on the importance of taking responsibility for your actions and using your strength to protect others rather than intimidate them. He received a full academic scholarship to a prestigious university, his future brighter than it ever could have been if he had continued down the path of bullying and intimidation. But perhaps the most touching moment came after the graduation ceremony, when Derek approached Sarah with tears in his eyes. "Mrs. Martinez," he said quietly, "I need to thank you for not giving up on me. You could have destroyed my life that day in the lab, and I would have deserved it. Instead, you saved it." Sarah smiled, the proud smile of a teacher who had succeeded in her most important mission. "Derek, you saved your own life by choosing to become a better man. I just showed you that the choice was yours to make." Derek nodded, then surprised her by standing at attention and offering a crisp military salute. "Thank you for your service, both to our country and to students like me who needed someone strong enough to show us a better way." As Sarah watched Derek walk away to begin his bright future, she reflected on the lesson that both she and her students had learned. Real strength isn't about intimidation or physical power. It's about having the courage to do what's right, even when it's difficult. It's about using your experience and abilities to lift others up rather than tear them down. The military had taught Sarah how to fight enemies, but teaching had taught her something even more valuable: how to transform enemies into allies through patience, wisdom, and unwavering moral courage. Years later, Derek Thompson graduated from college with honors and returned to his hometown as a high school counselor, dedicating his life to helping troubled students find better paths. He kept a photo on his desk of the day he graduated as valedictorian, with Sarah Martinez standing proudly beside him. The inscription on the frame read, "Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating our enemies, but from helping them become our allies." That's the power of true strength, moral courage, and never giving up on the potential for human transformation, even in the darkest moments. Thank you for joining us for this incredible story of courage, transformation, and the power of never giving up on someone's potential for change. If this story moved you or taught you something valuable about standing up to bullies and finding strength in difficult situations, please show your support by hitting that like button and sharing this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales and ring that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories of human courage, resilience, and transformation. We post new stories every week that will touch your heart and remind you of the incredible power we all have to make a positive difference in the world. What did you think of Sarah's incredible handling of this dangerous situation? Have you ever faced bullies in your own life, and how did you handle it? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire and help someone else who's facing similar challenges. Remember, real strength isn't about physical power or intimidation. It's about having the moral courage to do what's right, the wisdom to see potential in others even when they can't see it themselves, and the determination to never give up on the possibility of positive change. Until next time, keep believing in the power of courage, compassion, and the amazing capacity we all have for transformation. This is Heartfelt Tales, reminding you that every ending can be a new beginning when we choose courage over fear.